Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for coming to this session. My name's Lauren Walker, and I'm Senior Staff Writer at GovLoop. So let's get started. Agility is essential in a world where policy, technology, and public needs are constantly changing. In this session, we'll learn how to apply Agile thinking to government work, helping you adapt quickly, collaborate effectively, and deliver better outcomes for the communities you serve. But first, we have a few reminders. Take a moment to look at the row of icons on your screen underneath the slides. If you can't see them, try moving your cursor and they should appear. There are additional resources to view or download, including this slide deck, in the Resources tab. If you'd like to use closed captioning, look for the Show Captions icon. We hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send us a message to that Q&A tab. My colleague Caitlin is standing by to help you out. Use the same Q&A tab to ask questions for our speaker. Drop them in whenever. You don't have to wait until the end. We also have an open chat where you can interact with the other folks attending this session. So don't be shy. We want to hear from you. This is a conversation, and that's what makes it special. If you miss anything, don't worry. We'll email you a link tomorrow to the entire event, recordings of all the sessions, all the slides, and other resources. That link will go directly to your inbox, so it should be easy to find. Also, you can earn 1 CPE credit for your participation in this session. To get the credit, you need to do 3 things. 1, stay and participate for the whole entire session. If you leave early, no credit. 2, take all the polls. There will be 4, and they'll appear on your screen as pop-ups. Choose your response and click Submit to record your answer. And 3, fill out the post-event CPE evaluation to obtain your credit. You can find the CPE evaluation in the resource module on the console or at the Resource Center in the main environment. All CPEs will be emailed directly to you once we confirm that you have met all 3 requirements. Okay, with all that out of the way, let me introduce you to our speaker. With us today, we have Natalie Buda Smith, the Director of Digital Strategy for the Library of Congress. Natalie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us today. It's been a great day so far, and there's been some themes here, and some of the things I'm going to talk to you about today are reinforcing these themes, and I really feel seen today, which is really wonderful. But some of the themes that I'm seeing, and I'll kind of emphasize those, are resilience, dealing with stress, and building self-awareness in new ways. So I look forward to kind of going into those. So this is please reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. But if you do look at my profile, one thing that you'll notice is that I've been through a lot of career changes. And I've been in IT for technology for over 35 years, and my jobs have changed, mainly driven by technology changing and our disruptions in technology over the last 35 years. So I've been started out in human factors. I taught in academia. I was in user experience design. I even was in the Foreign Service for a short amount of time. And now I'm Director of Digital Strategy at the Library of Congress. So my career has changed a lot, mainly driven by disruption and technology. And so I wanted to ask you all with a poll question, how many career changes have you been through? Are you still in the same career? Have you been through 1 change, 2 changes, 3 changes, 4 or more? How many career changes have you been through? And to consider what drove that. Was it your own motivation? Was it technology? Was it other things? So how many career changes have you been through? Because I think if you've been around for a couple of decades, you've probably been, or at least know people who've been through a lot of career changes.
And again, we'll
Okay.
leave this up for about a
Yeah.
minute so that everyone gets a chance to answer. Um, I'm wondering, what do you consider a career change? When does it break from one?
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a kind of a personal definition. But for me, When I went from, I started out in IBM and then I went to academia. It was a really big culture shock. And so to me, that was a big career change, as well as going into startups. Startup culture was very different than academia. So that was another career change. And now the federal government is a very big cultural change from a startup culture. And that was a big shift for me as well.
Okay, here are our answers.
Oh, wow. Look at that. It's almost even across the board. It's really cool. It's really cool to see. That's great. Okay, so that something to consider while we're moving forward. And I can't see. Can I not click the slide? Do I have to wait? Do I have to? Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to get into what is being agile. So agile, as we know, is the ability to move and think quickly. That's really the classic definition. But another way to look at agile, or another way that we're familiar with agile, is it is a popular approach in software development, and it emphasizes flexibility and collaboration through incremental work. As a software development approach, it was a reaction in the early 2000s to major disruptions. You probably all remember the dot-com era, the dot-com boom, the dot-com bust. It was really a major disruption in technology. And what came out of software development, there was a manifesto that was developed in the early 2000s. And it was really, as we see it today, is taking something that tends to be a large effort and bringing it down into smaller parts, and then looking at those smaller parts and adjusting with each increment versus the whole endeavor. And so some of the tenets of the Agile Manifesto is individuals over process, working software over a lot of documentation, customer collaboration over contracts, and responding to change over rigid long-term plans. So if you think about these concepts and then apply it to your work or your career, you can have some interesting perspectives on your career and how you actually go through and exercise or engage with your work using these concepts. So why is considering an agile career important? In today's economy, it's shifting. Traditional employment patterns are no longer the way that we work. It's increasingly dynamic, ephemeral. A lot of people are moving from project to project versus from employer to employer. So that employer-employee relationship across the board is changing, and the demands of the workplace are changing. So individuals are recalibrating their expectations and what their value is to their employers and what their employers' values are to them. And they're building their careers from an individual perspective. So that's really an agile career nowadays. We really feel, and especially now, we really feel like the rug's been pulled out from underneath us. And so making yourself agile is a self-reflective way to incrementally thinking about your approach to work and then looking at those increments and responding to the change at that time. And then bringing in new skills, evolving your job role, and then trying to fill in the gaps there of what you're trying to accomplish, what the market is demanding, and then recalibrating the path forward. So it's really thinking of these as incremental cycles, making yourself self-reflect and think about how am I doing? What do I want to do? What skills do I really need to work on? What skills do I have a lot of experience on that provides that value? And doing that on a regular basis. This is a great comic here by Liz Fossler and Molly O.S. Duffley. It's from the book No Hard Feelings, Embracing Emotions at Work. And that's a little bit of, reflects this agile approach. Looking at this incremental kind of method and what your challenge is today. How do I adjust? And then think about it over time, accomplishing the lifetime goal that you have there to reach your career goals. So really thinking of it and looking at the increment and the accomplishments in the increment, and then moving to the next increment. And that's a really great book. And I'm gonna mention something else from them in a little bit. Let's see. So why is making yourself agile important? This isn't really about speeding up. it's really about bringing more context to your decisions so that your decisions can be made easier. So change is certain. There's a prediction here that many of the jobs and responsibilities that we may need in the next few years have not been established. So how do you bring more context and self-awareness and how you're thinking about your work and how you're planning on what you want to do? For example, we're not working we're working from the home, we're working in the home, not from the home right now. So that hybrid workspace is still evolving. So thinking about working in the home and the context that that brings, what was different than before we worked from the home or in the home, adding that self-awareness can really, really help. And then there's also some continuous disruptive technology changes, such as artificial intelligence. That is really bringing a new level of needing to adjust and understand what skills we need to build. And again, all of us are dealing with economic, cultural, and social change that is driving a lot of disruption in our work. Okay, so a key part in making yourself agile is being self-reflective and developing self-awareness to know what choices best fit you, what are your strengths, and what areas you need to grow. So one thing I wanted to focus on, something that we're all dealing with, is uncertainty. So bringing some self-awareness to uncertainty. And I know I have a perspective on uncertainty, and many others have their own perspective. To learn that people approach uncertainty in different ways can really bring some self-awareness. So as I mentioned, the authors Liz Fosslin and Molly West Duffy have an assessment of what type of uncertainty do you deal best with? What type of uncertainty do you have an affinity with? And the first one is, are you an uncertainty balancer? So, do you have a tolerance for uncertain situations, depending on if it's personal or if it's, at work, or maybe it's time based and then it's not long term. Do you see that you can actually walk into uncertainty, not necessarily like it, but you can balance it out over the long term? So that's one kind of uncertainty that people have affinity to. The next one is the uncertainty seeker. So there are people who really love to be in environments that are very uncertain. And you see that a lot in startup cultures where people really feel invigorated when they're not really sure where the next round of capital is coming because it makes them work harder or it makes them really have a goal. And so there are people who are uncertainty seekers where if they're in the middle of something that others may see as chaotic, they really thrive in that fast changing environment. So this is somebody who finds himself happiest in those sorts of situations. So think about, are you an uncertainty seeker? And there may be cultures and environments that you may thrive in over others. Then the third one is uncertainty avoider. So this is where you're really attuned to uncertainty, and having high uncertainty where things are constantly shifting will really take a toll on you, or you just don't feel comfortable. So when you're in this situation, do you find that you may be looking for that certainty and trying to move into something that has that stability? So if you think about these three different types of people and what types of uncertainty they're attracted to, so you have the seeker, you have the balancer, and you have the avoider. This can bring some self-awareness to how you think about your career and what environments that you're attracted to. So the next question is, there's a poll. What type of relationship do you have with uncertainty? Are you a balancer? Are you a seeker? Or you are an avoider?
Okay, and again, we'll leave this up for about a minute. We're not seeing any questions come in yet. I hope y'all will ask the questions in the Q&A tab when you get a chance. It's certainly true that everybody's getting a chance to explore their relationship with uncertainty these days, I think. But
Oh, definitely. I think no matter what institution or agency or work environment you right now, you're seeing uncertainty. This and understanding how you deal with uncertainty can kind of help you process some of that understanding, but also understand the work environment that you do best in. And so it's really helpful to know how you process or you feel about uncertainty. And thinking about knowing this, for example, if you are an uncertainty avoider, thinking about an agile career and making those plans, actually building out increments and building out a roadmap in those increments may give you more uncertainty, but you can still take time to look at those increments and rebalance and think about how to adjust along the way. So if you are really someone who loves uncertainty, maybe you're making your increments only for a year or 2 years because you're really excited about what's unknown in the next year and after. And so you might either have shorter increments or not as many increments in your road plan. So that can translate in that way as well.
It looks like our results are in and we have no uncertainty seekers.
Okay. Oh, that's really interesting. And that tends to happen. And if you are working in the federal government isn't a culture where there's typically more stability than, let's say, in contrast to a startup culture. That's really, really interesting. So this assessment has been taken by thousands of people, and it tends to be distributed as, or currently with those who've taken it, 11% as seekers, 28 as avoiders, and 61% as balancers. So this is really interesting to see how majority of government workers are more balancers and avoiders than seekers. Is really cool. All right, let's see the next slide here. Let's see it. Okay, so some of the qualities of being agile. Okay, all right. So, and you've heard some of these messages in other presentations today, but some of the top job skills for resilience, according to MIT research, is adaptability, critical thinking, and communication. And so, breaking down resilience into adaptability, so reskilling, planning ahead, uh, paying attention to close trends, reinventing yourself, or enhancing your job skills, is really, really important right now. Not only in this age of disruption, but also with merging technologies like artificial intelligence, or actually technologies that are here like artificial intelligence. Critical thinking is a must, and I'll get into that a little bit further along, where again, we're seeing that the routine processes or routine parts of work are really being lifted up and either automated or moved to artificial intelligence. So it's really a time to really build your critical thinking skills, practice your critical thinking, and communicate to others that you have those skills. And then communication is becoming more important than ever in this age of virtual work, but also because of the speed of work as it does grow faster and faster, more communication is necessary and clear communication is necessary. So some of the top skills to be resilient really are adaptability, critical thinking, and communication. This is another, let's see, and I'm trying to, okay. So another part of some work research that's been done lately, especially when it comes to being agile and agility at work, according to MIT, is that you want to think about your skills at work in four different dimensions. And so as we've went through and thought about what degree of uncertainty or what type of relationship we have with uncertainty, which brings some self-awareness, we also want to think about doing an assessment of what skills we have and what are our weaknesses and what are our strengths. And one way to do this is using this framework from MIT that has four literacies. You want to do an assessment digital literacy, financial literacy, civic and cultural literacy, and organizational literacy. So if you do an assessment, and again, this is something you want to do in those increments over time as you're building your career over time. So you want to take a snapshot of where you are with your skills in these dimensions and understand, oh, I bring a lot of experience with this, or I feel very comfortable with these skills, but I really want to build in those. And so MIT has done some research to understand what is more of a holistic framework there so you can find those areas that you're good at or that you would like to improve. And so they developed this human skills matrix. As you can see here, we have the four literacies there. And so in these four quadrants, there are skills underneath here, and you really want to think through, and they have it divided by thinking, interacting, managing ourselves, and leading. And there's skills, specific skills underneath there. And think through, how comfortable am I with each of these skills? How much experience do I have in practicing these skills, or how much do I want to build them if I don't have experience? So you see critical thinking there at the top. And what you'll notice here, something you'll probably notice, that this is a holistic framework to really think through what skills and values and competencies you bring to the workplace. You'll look at these, and a lot of these are emotive skills. These are not necessarily all technical skills. And so what we're seeing is a shift, especially in the age of artificial intelligence, to bringing those more emotive skills or more thinking skills to the workplace rather than knowing specific technical techniques, skills, processes. So thinking about your career snapshot, where you are right now, and how much of this you've been able to practice and what you may want to practice more. So, and one challenging thing there is a lot of times when we look for training from either our agencies or the companies that provide training, they'll easily give you access to technical skills, not a lot of access to emotive skills. So there's a lot of great training out there for emotive skills. And one of the, I think, more fascinating uses of AI right now are using AI to do role playing. So if you are thinking about, okay, I really need to work on my leading skills there. So, how do I develop others? So you can actually go and role play now a lot of these AI tools and role play on managing someone or having a crucial conversation with someone. So you can practice these even if you're not given an opportunity at work to do it directly. There are a lot of opportunities now to try to do that with other ways of training. So this is really a great snapshot to take a look at and use as a framework to then understand how do you fit in these and what you might want to work on and what is basically something you feel very experienced and leading with these where you have much experience. One of the literacies that people often don't feel comfortable in is with organizational literacy. And so I just wanted to highlight a few of the ways that you can actually develop your organizational literacy skills. For example, becoming really familiar with your annual and performance reports, and understanding, what is expected of, in your position, but also if you have annual reports from your agency, what has been accomplished, what was touted as being the big accomplishments of the year, and what is touted as going to be the big accomplishments of next year, and aligning your work towards that. So really, when you're doing this self-assessment or incremental assessment, looking at the strategic plans, strategic goals and objectives and annual plans and going, okay, how am I going to pivot my work to really align with that and then communicate to others that I'm doing that. Another place to look is executive orders. And then to join initiatives, connect to other big initiatives going on, and then actively sharing knowledge with those in those initiatives. All righty.
Did you
Oops.
want to run the poll?
Oh, was there another? I think it
There,
was.
there was a poll,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh,
what you're
yeah, yeah. Thank
comfortable
you.
with.
No. Well,
So
that's a
first,
good no, it's a good one. Okay. So, to ask the question, and which literacy, so we have digital, civic and cultural, organizational, and financial. Which literacy do you feel most experienced?
Okay.
I know for me, being in technology, that I do feel most comfortable with digital literacy and not so much with financial literacy. And a lot of our agencies, it's a very much different approach to finances. And so I know that when I think about the areas that I need to grow in, that's always one I like to reach to.
Okay, let's give it just a little bit more. We've got about half, no, we've got about 70% of the answers in.
Okay. And then the next poll is going to be which one are you least experienced?
Yes, so be prepared with
Yeah,
that answer.
prepared for that one. Yes, I'm curious.
Okay, so our results on this.
Oh, awesome. That's great. It's great that you all feel very comfortable with organizational literacy. That's wonderful.
Okay, so let's go to what they're most uncomfortable with. Oops, hang on just a sec. Stop sharing. Now, launch. There we go. So which one are you least experienced in?
And the next topic I'm going to get into is with artificial intelligence and how that's changing our work and our workplace. And even with this framework is about, I think about 3 to 5 years old now. It's maybe 5 years old. Even 5 years ago, these durable skills are still very applicable if your role is changing because of artificial intelligence. These skills are very durable, and they're going to be actually, a lot of them are going to be even more precious than they have before. Oh, at least, okay, digital literacy. Interesting. That's great. And if that's one of the skill literacies that you would like to build more experience with, there's such great free content on things like artificial intelligence. Even, for example, AWS has a lot of wonderful training. Again, very, very from the more general to very technical. You have schools such as MIT, Harvard, Stanford. A lot of them are putting their free training online. There are some wonderful courses with really great content that are free, and it is a bit overwhelming. But if you try to like, we've been, trying, the message of today is really to break it down and chart a course and think through, okay, let me take this chunk at a time and build upon that. It's really wonderful to have access to all the really great free training right now. Alrighty. And I'm trying to move forward. Okay. Okay, so to sort of reiterate before you get into AI, so some successful habits of an agile career, really to increase awareness and your ability to respond to change, to design a path, and to use introspection in every increment. Sometimes you can bring in these parallel pursuits from out of the workplace. If you're not getting it in the workplace, like I mentioned, you can actually now do some role play with AI tools in order to practice some of these skills, emotive skills. Habitually try to experiment, especially with the new tools to capture ideas. Really try to think of investing in yourself over the long term with building out these skills, and see your career as a series of initiatives and projects versus trying to stick with seeing it as employers, kind of changing the perspective there. And then continuously seek feedback, not only through self-awareness, but from peers and managers and mentors, and to really invest in your professional network and build a personal brand. That is becoming essential nowadays. Some tactical activities to try. You can think about what's not changing. Our technology is moving faster than we are right now, and it's going to continuously speed up. And so think about the processes at work that aren't moving as quickly as they should. For example, a very common agile technique is to have a stand-up meeting versus a standard meeting. A lot of us default to a 1 hour meeting. And Agile, they always question, do we really need to meet for an hour or can it be 15 minutes? So bring those sorts of new ways of thinking if your culture is hopefully allows you to adjust. Centralized communications versus a lot of messages or a lot of emails if possible. And then establishing criteria for having a meeting or for other activities that may be resource intensive. Also thinking about, can you establish success criteria for the activities? Like what defines this as an end? What defines this as a success? That's a really great agile concept that can really help people reevaluate work. Another thing that we're seeing with the application of agile methods to work is, a lot building in time as you can to research a new method or technology and sharing that with others, building informal learning groups, reverse mentoring. So maybe not so much that you're learning something new from somebody who has years of more experience of you, but how do you reach out to those that are just starting their careers because they often have a new, fresh perspective? That's another technique that we see. And also micro demos and inviting people to share how they work and vice versa. Sometimes you can find new techniques when you are able to share like that if you have the time to build that in. All right, and then I'm going to go through some being agile in the age of artificial intelligence. I spend most of my time working in artificial intelligence, so I wanted to share that this is really affecting the workplace and really fits in nicely with this new agile approach to work and agile approach to your career. And some of this may be familiar, but I'll just bring in some of these facts from Gartner. Has a lot of great research here. But through 2026, which is just next year, the overall impact will be neutral. Gartner actually, it feels the media is really making us feel like there's a lot more disruption and job loss. But Gartner has done analysis and controlling for other things like social and economic change. There's really only been about a 1% job loss. And MIT actually did more research. No, actually, with Stanford did research where the groups that are being impacted mostly by AI right now are the early career. Those are coming in entry-level jobs. There's about a 13% job loss there, which you're probably seeing if your friends or family have students that are coming out of college and trying to find jobs. So that is an area that's being affected, about 13%. But when it comes to mid-career and later career, it's either staying the same or there are more jobs because of the way that AI is being used right now. You really need domain expertise. Then by 2026, people will start to engage with, so next year, some of you are doing this now, engaging with basically something like an agent when you're doing your work. Either it's a chat bot or it is an agent that's running through an automated process and you're engaging with them. And by 2036, Gartner sees over 500 million of new human jobs. These are jobs that are dramatically changing because of artificial intelligence. And just to kind of give a perspective on this, I think this is an interesting graph that shows, if you think about, and this is interesting, so from Gartner, it says in 2023, these are the jobs that AI is outperforming humans in. This is where you still really need AI and human coexistence, and these are the ones where humans really outperform AI. So you can kind of see what types of jobs these are. So in 2023, you can see how this is shifting, and they did projections out to 2033. So something like weather prediction, I mean, that when AI is outperforming our human counterpoints. To the other extreme, personal care and therapy, like that is seen as the job those skills, those jobs really, you need the human there. Humans will outperform AI in many, many ways through 2033. But then there's a mix, and what you'll see here is that it is shifting, and this is part of that augmentation before there is, for example, outperformance. So like driving a car, a lot of us may or may not be excited about autonomous vehicles. But if we think about autonomous vehicles, they really, came into our awareness around 2005, even though the technology was being developed much further. But we're still not to the point where a car can be fully autonomous. I mean, they're almost there, right? But there's still a lot of cultural acceptance. So it took 20 years from, being rolled out on the streets initially to finally getting closer to acceptance. So you kind of see how things will shift, but they're not going to be really, really abrupt overall. You're going to see augmentation for a while before the job really changes that dramatically. All right. And so there'll be a redistribution of the workflow, and the most common impact will be that not a replacement, but augmentation. And so it's interesting to think about, how your job and what you're planning on doing in your career will require, or you will see augmentation for quite a while. And how do you go back to that skills matrix and think about, okay, these are skills that are not right now, not easily replaceable or easily done by AI. And how do I bring more experience or communicate my value in those sort of literacies, which is really interesting. And Gartner said, as I mentioned, 1% of job loss today from AI. They're saying what we're seeing right now and probably for the next 5 years is what they're calling job chaos or job redesign. And that's a lot of that uncertainty that we went back to before. There's going to be a lot of trying to figure out how we all are doing this as this technology continues to progress. All right. Okay, so thinking about artificial intelligence and what you can do when you're thinking about your agile career and building out those increments, building out those skills, reevaluating in increments. So some of the things that you can do is, become familiar with emerging technology in your field and at your place of work. Right now, it's becoming clear that we need domain experts, and the federal government has a lot of really good domain experts. And so your expertise is really needed. And the types of tools and the types of ways, and a lot of times we talk about use cases that we are using these technologies can be industry specific. So not only getting familiar with the AI chatbots or the other ways that we're using artificial intelligence, but how is it being used in your field? How is it being applied to your field? That will give you some more context and information to start to think about what do you want to learn? What is your next step? What is that next project you might want to aim for to get on or take on in order to move towards where your industry is going or your field of expertise is going? So adopting systems thinking, if you haven't explored that, especially now with agents becoming more and more of reality and us most likely going to see more and more agents over the next 5 years, agents are really tied to this idea of systems thinking because an agent operates in a system. And so if you are engaging with augmented AI, so you might be, building an agent or someone's built an agent for you to work with, you are part of a system. So understanding system thinking and exploring how you can apply systems thinking to your job is really, really, really effective right now and will become even more important. So, in thinking about your immediate job, what parts are really going to be, are they repeatable processes? Those things, either you want to start experimenting with AI and trying to make them automated so that you can focus on other types of skills because if not, it's most likely going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. So get step up on that and understand what skills may be automated versus what really needs that critical thinking and that domain expertise. And invest in critical thinking, systems thinking, and your domain expertise, because these are the things that really are going to be much needed over the next 5 to 10 years. And a lot of this has been about continuously learning, creating this mindset of continuously learning like we're doing today. This has been a great way to not only build a community, but to learn a lot of new things and to share. All right. And then, okay. Something for the chat. What can you put in chat? What is something new that you can try this month to make yourself agile? So I've thrown a lot of information at you. Maybe you want to learn something new. Maybe you want to kind of take a self-assessment in any of those skills, or to really dive into uncertainty, like why do I feel this way? Or maybe you want to think about, oh, why don't I start an informing learning group at work, or informal learning group at my community, my local library, and we're going to explore GitHub, how to use GitHub, or we're going to explore how to use, OpenAI or Copilot. What is one thing that you can do to try to make yourself more agile this month? Learn about AI agents. I think that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Oh, awesome. Peer-led demos. Yes, that's wonderful. That's great. Master's degree. That's really great. Oh, awesome. Planning for testing. That's good. That's great. And make sure to put that all on LinkedIn, all your certifications. Definitely. All right. Okay. And so my last slide here is on the horizons for ways of working. So this is something else to think about and what we're seeing. So what we're seeing in the next 5, 10, 15 years is really doubling, with this quote from Scott Galloway, doubling down on what humans do well. And that is curation, curiosity, and connectivity. And so looking at your job, and it may not be in your position description, but it may be in the realm of what you do. What is it that you do that will allow you to double down on these skills of curation, curiosity, and connectivity? What we're seeing, the trend is something I'm calling experience compression. Sometimes people talk about as Swiss Army knife workers, which is, and we saw this with the internet, we saw this with the typewriter, where you're being asked to do more things than ever before. And so, how do you look at your range of work and activities and start to offload those things that are routine, low risk, to tools like an AI chatbot, and then allow you to focus more on your domain expertise, your really field of expertise. And so you may be asked to take on more and more types of responsibilities, but the idea there is to try to offload as much as you can to automation or artificial intelligence and allow you to focus on the pieces that require analysis and critical thinking. One thing you can dive into if you haven't done this yet, we often talk about it as prompt engineering. That's changing really, really quickly. The ways that we prompt are different today than they were a year ago, but it is crucial, and good prompts are crucial, especially with those that are first learning how to use tools and how to evolve these tools to take on more and more of those routine tasks. And so diving in and learning about prompt engineering is key. And the best way to do that now, which we're finding, is through social learning. So it's really about building, like I mentioned, informal groups, or maybe it's a formal pilot group. We are learning from each other, and the best way to learn is being social and social learning. So maybe you're in HR, like Lisa here is getting her master's degree in HR. Learning is going to be like, we've made great strides with asynchronous learning, online learning, virtual learning. there's a lot of potential there in social learning. How do we build communities so that we're sharing things because this information and the things we have to learn is just moving so quickly. Another field that's becoming more and more important that we may see jobs shift into is evaluation of AI tools, evaluation of AI outcomes. So what is the data that's coming out there? Is it right? So evaluation and governance, governing these AI tools. So if you're able to look at a project or think about what do I want to learn, AI governance is something that's going to be becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Some other ones there are curation and context engineering. Again, look these things up if you're not as familiar with them. What we're finding is that for these AI tools to be better, they need to have someone to tell them what to look at. And so that is a job of curation, context engineering. And then the prediction is that within the next 5 years, you'll be managing people, but some of those may be agents and they may not all be human. So you might have an agent that is your person who books and makes sure all your travel is compliant, for example. And that may be an agent that is on your team that is working with your other team members. And so the prediction there is that within 5 years, you may be managing agents. So bringing those management skills and thinking about team cohesion, team composition, team performance where one of your team members may be an agent. So these are I'm trying to give you some far out concepts. I know, Veronica, thank you. Far out concepts there when you're thinking about planning a long-term career in these increments. Think about, what would it be like if you are a manager in 10 years and 10%, if not 25% of your employees are actually AI agents instead of humans. All right. And I think that is it. So I've given you a lot of information and curious to know if there's any questions. Even if not, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn at any time. These are both exciting, depending on how much uncertainty you love, very exciting times or very shaky times if you're like me and like some predictability. So please feel free to reach out if you have questions or would like to chat about any of these concepts.
I just wanted to mention that the phrase job chaos really wraps the current situation up very well. And I just wanted to ask if there's a way, if you can give some pointers for how to use this kind of agility in other areas of your life. I mean, does it apply?
I think so. I'm on the endish of my career, professional career maybe. And so I'm thinking about that in an agile way. So it may not be my career, but it's thinking about if I'm no longer working for a salary, how do I want to structure my life? And we do go through phases of life. So they often say, when you're in your early 60s, it's much different than if you're in your early 70s versus your early 80s. So not thinking about, for example, retirement as this monolith that I'm trying to get through and I'm trying to be as less stressed as possible. But how do I break that up into these more increments that are reflective of the smaller goals that I have? So in my early 60s, I might want to do more traveling, or I might want to go back to school, or I might want to work on an organic farm in Italy. And so I know I'm not going to want to do that for 20 years, but thinking through, if you're near the end of your career, thinking through your retirement, it's very much the same. And that you can take an agile approach to that and break it up into 3 year increments and think, okay, what do I want to do in these 3 years? And it becomes less daunting because I know a lot of us who may be considering retirement, you often think, well, what is that one thing I want to do for the rest of my life now that I don't have to do what I'm doing now? And it's overwhelming. Like that's a big decision. But if you think, what do I want to do for the first 3 years? And give yourself a break be compassionate with yourself and say, if all I get, if all I do is organize my photos and travel to these places and maybe reconnect with family. If I'm doing that in the first 3 years, that's what I want to do. And then at the end or near the end, like 2.5 years in, I'm gonna take another perspective, and then I'm gonna reevaluate the next 3 years, or maybe at that point it's the next 5 years, depending on my health, depending on the stock market, depending on where my kids are living at the time. And so it's that same sort of approach, and depending on how I'm feeling. So bringing in that self-awareness, breaking it down into less intimidating steps, and then in thinking through, okay, now I've been able to experience these things. What's next? What do I want to try or learn or experience that I haven't had a chance to? And it's the same sort of concept really can help.
A question has popped up in the chat. How would I assess my skills to see areas to improve to be more agile? Is there a skills assessment that you recommend?
Right. There are a lot of great ones. Unfortunately, I'm trying to think. Um, If you connect to me, I'll try to find one that's free because the ones I'm thinking of it tends to cost. But if you connect to me on LinkedIn, I'll dig up and research ones that are decent and free. Because I hate spending a lot of money, especially when we're not being paid right now. But just going back to this human skills matrix, these durable skills, and I know they can feel a little abstract right now. But thinking through taking this framework and then thinking through, you could just do an initial assessment and think, how comfortable am I with these? Some of these you may not be familiar with. And so I would go, okay, I'm gonna check, I'm gonna learn more about that. Some of these are you might have amazing project management skills. I mean, that's one thing that I know the federal government has a lot of really good program project management people here. So you may like, I'm done. Like I can improve a little bit, but like I feel very confident there. So you could go through and do that first step and just learn more about those areas that you may not be as familiar. For example, ethics. And ethics is becoming really important now, especially with AI governance, because governing AI is really connected to your agency's or your organization's values, your principles, and your ethics. So some agencies will say, like, we're not going to roll out a new tool, or we're not going to put content out that will harm anybody. And that is a question of ethics. And so if you're not as familiar with ethics, that's one. So you can go through and say, okay, how much do I feel comfortable that I could talk to these things? And then that will give you on this side is I feel good. On this side, I want to learn more about these. But reach out and I'll find an assessment that's low cost or free.
And I just want to remind you that you can download the slide deck so you can have this slide to work with while you're thinking about these things. Is there any other questions out there to drop into the chat? It looks like maybe you've satisfied everyone's curiosity for now. So I am gonna lead us toward wrapping up. We're close to the end of time anyway. It's been just a wonderful discussion. I'm really going to think about these things. Um,
Great, thank you.
and yeah, I think they will change my approach, and I think they'll
Sounds good.
be helpful to everybody. Um, okay, we also want to thank our 2025 NextGen Partner Alliance for helping put on today's NextGen Summit. And a few quick reminders before we end the session. Don't forget to fill out your CPE evaluation to get your credit. And if somebody did miss the poll questions because I ended them too soon, check in at the help desk and they can help you get credit for that. If you haven't gone yet, check out the exhibit hall and all our amazing booths where you can collect lots of additional information and resources. Up next, our closing keynotes start at 3 p.m. in Eastern, so you have about 15 minutes um, to, grab a beverage or take a breather. But be sure to join us. You can access those sessions in the Sessions tab in the main environment. So we'll see you all then. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.